Okay, so question is that how can you sell your products, your services to other people, which means your buyer, without sounding pushy? You feel, oh my God, like they really, really want your product. But many times I learn from my audiences when they want to sell their stuff, there's this psychological barrier, there's this emotional obstacle, and eventually what happens is that I'm not a salesperson anymore because like why do they not buy from me? Like if you have got these kind of questions in your mind, this is the training for you. I'm going to introduce a very simple process called the self-help system. Now, I want you to realize that this self-help system is my experience of how I sell my stuff to other people. Now, you got to understand one thing. If you don't sell, if you are not able to sell, or if you don't want to sell, okay, whether you call it psychological, emotional, or whatever barrier you call it, there's no money in your pocket. Reason is very simple. Let me just say this one more time. Sales equals income. So let me show my face so they can see me. Sales equals income. If you don't sell, there's nothing in your pocket. You don't have the money, you don't have the resources, you know what will happen. Okay, I'll let you fill in the blank. Now, let me just give you a few pointers before I share with you the system. Now, let's start with a conversation like, why do you, what will happen when you can't sell, when you do not want to sell, when you can't sell? So let's talk about this thing called the frustration. What are the frustration you have? Now, think about this. When you want to sell something, and you say, wow, I'm not sure whether the person will buy from me. The question number one is that, well, if they reject you, you feel angry, don't you? If they reject you, you feel angry, don't you? Because the most problem I see in terms of selling is the fear of rejection. Like frustration number one is always rejection. That's from my experience. Number two, you will feel depressed. My God, I'm not sure whether I should be in sales anymore. Why? Because I can't sell, I cannot get results. You feel depressed. And I always love to tell my client when someone feel depressed, the last thing the person might want to do is to commit suicide. Of course, I don't want you to go to that space. Depression to me is just simply losing meaning of life. Okay, so I want in this training to help you find the meaning of life. And number three, what will happen is this. The other thing that you will see is this thing called you may sound fake. Now I've gone through this journey for myself at the beginning because the school never taught us how to sell. And what happened is that I learned how to pretend to be someone, and that's where this problem happens. When I sound like somebody else, don't you think that the buyers can smell it? It's like you don't sound authentic. You are not that person, by the way. So therefore, what I want you to do is to realize that you feel rejected, you may feel depressed, and you feel that I'm not the real me. Okay? So here's the opportunity. Let me just write this down. Here's the opportunity in this training. What you are going to see is that what if you can find a system that allows you to be confident, to be more confident in the way you handle relationship, in the way you extract the value of your product and service so that your buyer can say yes to you. What if you are not a salesperson? Those sleazy salesperson, what they do is like they want to shove, like I always love to say that they want to shove the apple, asking you to open your mouth. They don't care whether you want the apple or not, right? That's always my metaphor. What if you can be a true caregiver because you care for the buyers? You have to help them to make that decision. What if you are able to have a happy moment and say, "Oh my God, yes," because this is this is the time when the buyer say yes to me, and you feel happy because of the fact that you have helped the person. Okay, so in this training, what I'm going to do is the promise I'm going to give you. Okay, the promise that I'm going to give you. Number one is a system. This is pretty easy to understand. Now, I need to have a caveat here. It is easy to understand. The problem is that it requires practices. Okay, what's the word? Here's I want you to say out loud. Although I can't hear you right now, you need practices. In sales, one of the key things that I learned from all my teachers in sales is that you just can't learn the concept. You have to practice. Because if you do not practice by role playing, you are not going to master the skills in sales. Like I would say that even though I've been selling so long, I'm still doing role play. I'm still practicing. And the fact is that I always see myself as a person who can improve to the next level. I'm not the best person because by saying that I'm the best, I kind of lock myself up to the ceiling. Okay, I'm looking for constant improvement, and therefore practices is very important. And instead of feeling rejected, you feel more accepted. And I think the last thing you want to hear is that you feel accepted because this is a fulfilling life as a good salesperson. And most importantly, I would say that sales is actually to help. That's the reason why I come up with this system called sell help. So you can remember sell help system. Okay. So I'm going to give you a framework of that, and I'm going to explain how this system works. So I'm actually giving you a worksheet here, and the worksheet is actually together with this training would help you understand system. So you may want to just pause the recording. You want to download the worksheet. You want to print this out or put it on iPad. If you love to draw like me, put it on iPad because I'm going to share with you the principles behind each and every element. Okay, so are you ready for this? Okay, let's get started. Okay, so here is a very simple triangle. Okay, in a triangle here, I want you to start off with this question. Let me see if I can see my triangle here, so I can see that. So let me see my face so that let me also see my face so that you can see me. Yes, that's me here. Okay, I want you to do a couple of things here. Number one, I want you to draw a picture of yourself here. Okay, I want you to draw a picture of yourself, and I want you to let me avoid using the green pen because you may not be able to see. Okay, see. Let me use a black. Okay, I want you to ask yourself this question. Okay, this is you. Say this is me. Okay, I want you to look at this person, and I want you to feel good about this person because selling is actually a transfer of emotion. My teacher Alex Mendosian taught me selling is the transfer of emotion. So the first person you need to sell is actually not your buyers or anybody else, it's you. So you do have to transfer the emotion, look at yourself right now and feel good about yourself. And I think this is pretty important. Before I even talk about selling to other people, you got to feel good about selling to yourself. If not, then you may want to message me after you have consumed the training. There are a couple of things you can do, what we call the mind work that you may need to do on this. Like this is what we call working on ourselves. Okay? And I want you to start realizing that I am not a salesperson only. Well, although you may say that I'm a salesperson, yeah, that's fine. I want to accept this is your identity. That's fine. Being a salesperson, there's nothing wrong with that because selling is helping. So I want you to extend the definition of salesperson to somebody that is a helper. So you help someone. So salesperson is a helper. How about that? Salesperson is a helper. I want you to equate these two words and give the same meaning to that. A salesperson is a helper. If you can accept that identity, this is how we can continue the conversation. If not, then you may want to pause the recording and ask yourself, what else must I do to work on myself such that I can accept this salesperson equals helper? Okay? So now let's start the ball rolling by looking at the three important principles about this self-help system. So number one, I want you to write this down. It's actually the mindset. Because the first thing you realize is that your identity is very important. Because if your identity is not clearly established, well, no matter what I say in this training would not work. Because if you don't see yourself as a salesperson, you don't see yourself as a helper, then guess what? No matter what I'm telling you in this training, it will not work. So that's the reason why I want you to start realizing your identity. And then now I can talk about the mindset shift. Okay. So the mindset, write this down, mindset. I'm going to elaborate what this is later on. Number two, I want you to write this word down called relationship. Okay, relationship. Relationship with whom? Now, this is not relationship about yourself with yourself. It's relationship with you and your clients or your prospects. Okay. Number three, I want you to write this down. This is practice. As I said earlier on, you can't just become a salesperson overnight. You can't just become a helper overnight. You do have to practice. So I will share with you what's the principle behind the word practice. Okay. Now, I want you to start focusing on the very first one, the mindset. Under the mindset category, there are few principles you need to ask yourself or you need to keep in mind. Okay. So number one, let me see whether I can use another color so that you will register better. Okay. The the mindset shift number one is it, any kind of sales is not about you, but about them. I'm sure you have heard of this before. It's not about you, it's just about them. The conversation that you have entered into with the prospect is always about them. Why? Well, have you got any moment, in your experience in the past whereby a person just loved talking to you? In fact, what happened is that when I'm doing this training, it just happened this morning whereby I have someone who texted me on WhatsApp a huge and long and lengthy conversation. It's all about him. It's about him. So what did I do? Am I interested? I was actually having my breakfast. It's like it's kind of putting me off because first of all, the person sent the text message at the wrong time. Number two, at all time, although he asked me a question, he's basically sharing with me his perspective. So the conversation is all about him, not about me, right? So do you think I'm interested in having a conversation in that case? No. So the mindset shift principle number one is that the conversation is always about them, not you. So if you are telling people, okay, I'm a good salesperson, I've been in this industry for a long time, and you know what, I've been selling so many people about my product and my stuff, like the buyers will check out straight away because what is in for me to listen to you. Okay, so your conversation must be about them, not you. Principle number two is that you must add value first. Now, salesperson, I don't know whether you have this experience. Salesperson loves to just sell because to them, KPI or key performance indicator is the number of sales closed. They want to sell quick and they don't really care whether you want this or not. They just say buy, done. Can you relate to this? If you can, well, say yes. So in a hard selling conversation based or self-help system, what we do is that we add value first. So although the conversation is about them, okay, we start talking about them. We also have to understand we need to add values first. Like because what is the most important thing? If you do not add value to the conversation, the buyer will say, sorry, I got to check out. I'm not interested in that conversation. Okay. So add value is very important. Add value, and only after this you sell. So salespeople love to sell without adding value. You under the sell help system is you add value first. You may want to add value more before you sell. Okay, so this is the mindset shift. Number three, salespeople love to talk about the features. So they talk about the logic. Okay, this product is so good because of these particular features. And the mindset of you as a salesperson, therefore, under this self-help system is no, features are not that important. Yes, features are important, but not that important. What is important is this word called emotion. Have you heard of this saying that people buy based on emotion, not logic? I kind of agree with this to a large extent. I'm not saying that you must sell emotion all the time and forget the logic. Some people still look for logic to make the decision. I'm one of them. So I'm saying that you should spend time to focus on the emotion. Like, what is it for me as a buyer to listen to you? And most importantly, what would happen if I say yes to you? What sorts of outcome do I get by saying yes to you? And what is the emotion? Like, am I feeling more confident when I say yes to buy your stuff? Am I able to excel to my business to the next level so that I can help more people? So this is a very important conversation because at the end of the day, you need to talk about the heart-based selling. You need to focus on heart-based selling. So emotion is very important. So you want to identify the emotion, what it takes for the buyer to say yes to you, such that the buyer can do this and that. And what is the feeling attached to those things the buyers can have. Understand? So we can talk about this later on. Now, let's talk about the second part, which is the relationship. So how are you doing so far? If you're doing well, say okay. Say okay to yourself. Although I can't hear you, I think I'm able to like like I can feel for you. I can feel with you. Okay, good. Let's talk about the next thing, relationship. Now, when you first meet a stranger, how would you feel to have a conversation with that person to start with? Or put this into another perspective. What if someone who is a stranger approaches you? Like, would you say, okay, please get out. I want to find ways to get out. Okay, you can't see me. Bye. Like, have you got this kind of feeling before? Right? If you do, this is where relationship category is important. Relationship number one, principles number one is that you want to spend time doing research. Now, I'm sure you have heard of this many times. If you are not spending time understanding your prospects, you are wasting time. Have you heard of this before? So, for example, if someone say, "Hey, Jack, what do you do?" In my mind, I'll say, "Dude, have you actually done research at all?" Because let's say you go to my social profile, you will notice what I do, right? So, asking the question, "What do you do?" is kind of like unnecessary if you have done your homework. But what if the question is that, hey, Jack, I noticed that you have been doing tax consulting for a long time. Like, how is your business so far? Is that a better question than, hey, Jack, what do you do? Because for the second question, hey, I noticed that you have been in a tax consulting business so far, it shows that you have done homework. Okay, so this guy says to me, okay, he has checked my profile. Good. So you see, by nodding head or say good, it gives the buyer the permission to move forward rather than just shy away and say, I don't want to listen to you. So research to me is very important. Another word for this I love to give you is called DYODD. Now, a lot of salespeople actually don't spend time on this. And I said that in order for you to sell your product and services, unless you're selling those kind of like paperclip, okay, $1 per piece. Unless you are selling something that is so low value, then that's besides the point. I'm sure that by watching this training, you might be selling something of higher value. And therefore, doing research and DYODD is so important. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next one is called building rapport. Now, you notice that rapport building is so key because rapport building is the first step of transferring trust. Write this down. Rapport building is the first step of transferring trust. Because no trust, no matter whether the person know you or like you, the person will not buy from you. Have you heard that before? So rapport building, it means that your first few conversation with someone who is new to you is not about please buy my product because I want to sell to you. Okay, I want you to realize at the end of the day, building rapport means that find something in common. Okay, so communal interest or find something in common is actually very important in rapport building. So I noticed that you are based in Singapore. Yeah, I'm based in Singapore. Me too. Okay, wow. How is the Singapore culture looks like at today? Or you may say, okay, I noticed that you're learning from Alex Mendosian. Me too. Oh, okay. How long have you been following him? So you see, these are the rapport building. Because when you and the prospect have something in common, guess what will happen? It allows the prospect to lower the fence and move forward to engage with you. So rapport building is important. And last but not least, this is what I hate a lot of salespeople they do. They want to say that, hey, I'm the expert, so you got to listen to me. Okay, you got to listen to me, and they use some very profound jargon. Hey, you know what? Section 10(1) of the Income Tax Act says that you derive income from a business that is sourced in Singapore, or you receive foreign income in Singapore, you will have to pay tax. This is actually my line, by the way. However, most of my clients don't understand tax law by even reading the legislation. So I got to dumb it down. So salespeople love to showcase their expertise, and they use profound languages and jargons to confuse you. Remember, in sales, a confused mind never buys. So you need to ask yourself, okay, your relationship with the salesperson is not like you are higher than the person or the person is lower than you. You need to level up or level down, whichever the case might be. So I like to use the phrase called dumb it down. So be mindful, be conscious when you have a conversation. You want to treat the person a 5-year-old kid. Now, I'm not saying that I'm insulting the buyer. When I say 5-year-old kid, all I mean is metaphorically, you need to dumb it down your languages. So let's say using the concept that I share with you, the Section 10.1 of the Income Tax Act, all I'm saying is that, hey guys, do you know if you're running a business in Singapore, you make money in Singapore, you pay tax in Singapore. And if you happen to receive income that you make elsewhere, you bring it back to Singapore, you pay tax in Singapore. Do you see? So this is what we call dumb it down. Your relationship with the person is no longer just like, okay, I'm your parent, so you got to listen to me, or I'm the authority, you got to listen to me, because if that's the case, the buyer will lose interest straight away. Or sooner or later, the buyer will not want to work with you. Okay, so before move on to a practice, I just want to do a revision here. So the first thing you need to do is to realize that the identity shift. You are a salesperson, and at the same time, you are a helper. Salesperson is a helper. That's the identity shift. Okay, you may want to print this out, look at it, paste it on the wall, and look at this daily to accept this is your identity. Okay, only then you can talk about the mindset shift. A couple of people love to say that mindset is important. Yes, I agree. But if your identity hasn't been shifted, the mindset shift is not working. I can tell you from experience, right? So mindset shift, number one, is the conversation is always about them, not about you. Number two is that don't sell first, add value, create the value, and thereby you can then sell later on. And number three, focus on the emotion, the benefits, not so much about the features or the logic. In terms of relationship, do your own research, do your own due diligence. Very important, so that your conversation sounds that, okay, well, this guy has checked on me, he understands me, and you know what? Okay, I'm prepared to listen to what he's about to say. Okay. Number two, build rapport by first of all building something in common. Okay, because rapport, remember I said before, rapport is the first step to create trust. You have to have rapport first, or else trust can't be transferred. Number three, forget about your expertise. Dumb it down. Remember, you are talking to someone who is not in your industry. So what's the point of showcasing your expertise? The person will be confused, and the person will say, sorry, I'm not interested in buying from you. Okay? So now let's move on to the last piece. How are you doing so far? Okay, so now let's move on to the last piece. Okay, so the last piece is practice. Now, we all know role play is important. Role play is important. So let me just give you an idea of how you can do role play. So I learned this from my teacher, Alex Mendosian. And you say that role play is actually between two people. Okay, you are acting as a salesperson, you sell, and the other person is the prospect. Okay, so this is what we call practice role play. Wrong. Don't do this, because you won't be able to improve, because you're just practicing for the sake of practicing. So I want to give you a triangular model of role playing so that you make sense out of this. So there are three people involved. Number one, there will be a salesperson, the person who sells. Number two, the person who is acting as the prospect. Okay, then there's one more person. The last person is actually the observer. You can actually take this from me, because this is an ABC model: sell, prospect, and observe. What's the importance of having the observer there? The observer can identify the blind spot, which the prospect can't. Why? Because the prospect is in the position of role playing with you, and he is focusing on that conversation. He might have not he might not be able to identify blind spots, whereas the observer standing out of the conversations are more objective, is more objective, and will be able to give you the feedback that you wouldn't have been gotten if it is a role play by two people. So practice this role play style, and after the role play, you want to switch role immediately. You want to switch role immediately so that practice. So seller become the prospect becomes the observer becomes the salesperson. So you just do 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. So every person has participated in as a seller, as a prospect, and an observer. So get coached by coaching other people. Learn by coaching other people. Is that helpful? I hope so. Okay. So coming back to the practice, we all know role play is important. What do we do? There are a couple of things you need to watch out for in doing role play. And I'm happy to do an additional training on this because by the practice, by looking at the practice, you can actually be like a 4 or 5 days training. So I'm just giving you the principle for the purpose of this training. Number one, you got to learn how to ask quality question. Jack, I know what. You know what? Okay, good. If you know what is quality question, by all means, allow me to explain. When you are talking about quality question, what I'm driving at is that there are certain questions which allows you to extract details. There are questions that allow you to extract the abstract or value. So you got to know what kind of questions should be asked. What is the outcome of asking the question? If let's say you want to extract the value of the conversation, avoid asking for details. And when you want to extract detail, you don't ask a question that extracts the value. Okay, it's got to know what question you should ask in order to get the to accept the right response. This is very important. So learn how to ask quality question by understanding what are the questions are used to extract value. What are the questions you should use to extract the details? If you need more help, let me know. I'm happy to help you on this. Number two, this is very important. Now I'm writing this word. I'm not sure whether you do understand this word in Chinese. This is called ting in Cantonese. In Mandarin, it's called team. What is that? This is called listening. Now in English language, I know there's difference between hearing and listening, and I love to use this Chinese word as a metaphor. Why? Because when you extract this word, team, what you see is that there are a couple of things. Let me just do it one more time. Okay, let me extract this. Okay. Uh, okay, so let me just do it one more time. So I write this word big so that you can see what's going on. There are a few elements in this word. I mean, of course, I'm not here saying that you understand Chinese or what. Don't worry. Let me explain. Okay, so even though you don't understand Chinese, you'll be able to pick this up. Number one, this portion. This is the Chinese character representing ear. Ear, correct. Ear. Listening requires you to use ear to listen. Very obvious, right? Okay, good. You know that. Number two, listening also requires you to use your eyes. Or this ear, this eye, eyes. Listening is not about using your ears only. Listening is also about using your eyes. Observe what's going on. Is the person checking out or is the person very interested? You can look. Number three, this is the key. This is to me the hardest part for me to learn from my experience, and yet it is so important. And that's the foundation of hard selling. What is hard selling actually? A hard selling conversation means that there is a connection between you and your prospect. When I say connection, it's not connected here, it's connected at heart level. And that requires something called empathy. You got to understand this. That requires you have to have the empathy. Put yourself into the shoes of the other person. Feel for the person, not just feel with the person. Empathy. Okay, so This word I love it the most because it says that listening requires you to use your ears. You can point your ears now, ears, your eyes, and your heart. So that's the second element under the word practice. Okay, asking quality question is one. Listening is very difficult because a lot of people can't wait to say something. Especially salesperson, they're eager to talk most of the time. In the self-help system, you'll notice that most of the time it is the prospect doing the talking. So I love to come up with this famous 80-20 rule. Salespeople in a typical sales conversation will contribute 80% of the time and 20% of the time to listen. In this particular system, self-help system, you'll be doing listening 80% of the time and 20% of asking questions. Does that make sense? It's a big shift. Number three, what's number three? Number three is this word. Let me just remove this so that you can see the number three here. Number three is this word, clues. Okay, use another pen, clues. The words the prospect use, the emotion, the tonality the prospect use or display, and even the body language, okay, all are clues. That's the reason why number one, we may have heard something called words is 7% of the conversation, and 93% are non-verbal. Non-verbal could mean that it is about the body language or it is about the tonality. Okay, if you are interested, you can actually Google this 7 and 93 formula. Okay, I'm not getting there now. All I'm saying is that the words the prospect use can mean something. The body language, the tonality, even the pauses mean something. So, as a good salesperson under this self-help system, you're not just asking questions, listening. You got to watch the clues because the clues can signal something. For example, the person may sound very interested in this conversation, but the person is not doing something like the body movement is not great, it's not big, okay? Or the person is like crossing his arm. Although he said he's excited, yeah, I'm excited to hear about you. I kind of like what you say, but you notice the body language is like he's crossing arm. Something is wrong. Now, this is why even though it is an online call, for example, like nowadays, a lot of people love to pick up the phone and close, or actually send what we call do a Zoom call or do a meeting call. I'm using meeting, by the way, a meeting call to actually allow each person see each other. I would say that, like, do you prefer actually having a call online with videos on, or do you prefer a phone close, which means that you can only listen to the sound of the voice of the prospect and ask questions accordingly without seeing the person? Now, this is another debate that I can tell in the industry. There are people who would love to pick up the phone and call and close. There are people who would love to do Zoom call. I will just say one thing. That's the reason why I love to use the 93%. Because the 93% is not about the words. It's about the pauses, the tonality. Now you're on the Zoom call or a meeting call when the video is off, you can't see the person. So there's no body language you can identify, but you do have the tonality, the pauses, like the high tone, low tone, the silent moment. All this can be picked up as a clue for you to ask questions. So what's going on? Before I proceed, what's going on now? Like what is coming through your mind right now? Can you just share with me? Let's be honest here. What is going through your mind right now? Well, I sense that there are a bit of sigh. What's going on? What happened? So you notice that these are the clues. Before you ask question, you check the clues so that you know whether you need a buffer or you need to redirect or do something. Because the last thing you want in practice is interrogation. Interrogation means that you ask question, ask question, ask question, ask question. It becomes an interrogation. And people who are very new to this business, they love to just keep asking question and like interrogation. And about 6 or 7 questions later, the buyer will say, "Are you interrogating me? Why do you keep asking me questions? Hello?" So you see, so the clues is the moment for you to pick up to see whether you should do something else rather than just keep on asking questions. Okay, so I hope that this self-help system actually gives you a perspective of how you can have a sales conversation without being pushy. Now, I want you to realize one thing at the end of the day. What you can do is that on each segment, the mindset, the relationship, and the practice, all I want you to do is to pick one of this. Under the mindset, I want you to pick one and focus on that. So in your next conversation, check out, let's say if you pick up not you, but them, you want to pick up this conversation with another person and notice whether it's about you or about them. Because awareness is always the first step to change. Once you become aware, then you can see what else you can do, what behavioral shift you can have. Does that make sense? Relationship. I want you to start having conversation with somebody. Like for me, this is the key. Whenever you pick up a call or about to pick up a call with somebody, go to the social media profile because it's. I believe a lot of us are on social, or if not, just look at just Google something and see what comes up. Have some understanding of what the person, who the person is, before you have the conversation. So do this. That's one step you can implement. And then for listening, you can start talking with your friends. This is how I train my mentees. Start talking with your friends because they know you, and then have conversation and the notice how you ask question. Do you really listen? Are you able to pick up the clues? And that's what I train my mentees to do when it comes to practices. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this training. What is the one biggest takeaway you have so far? And what is the one action step you would move forward to, or you would take so that you can move forward? Let me know. Let me know. And if this training is useful and if there's any areas you want me to elaborate, by all means, I'm happy to do that. And you know what? At the end of the day, I just want you to become a better and more effective salesperson because you then can help lots of people and make this world a better place. So with that, Jack Wong here signing off. Thanks for watching this training called Self-Help System. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how I can help you. I'll see you in my next training. Cheers.